Welcome to the Social Media Church podcast. I'm Neil Smith, and today is our infamous annual predictions podcast with a man who needs no introduction, a man who this podcast knows very well, a man who I would often call my nemesis, but really I'll just call him for the sake of honesty today, my bestie, one of my favorite human beings in all the world, the Kenny Jahng. Kenny, thanks for being on the podcast.
I feel like there needs to be a drum roll. What can actually follow that introduction? I have no idea. I'm really glad to be here, though.
My hope is if I can someday make Kenny's bio as just Nil's bestie, makes the bio as a part
Let's
of.
Open up a window and edit the bio right now.
Good, do it. That will make my year. If in 2024, that's my it's not a prediction, it's an objective for 2024 is for Kenny's bio to include Nil's bestie as a part of the bio. Kenny, I love you. I'm grateful for you. People often talk about me as a guy that's on the cutting edge of like what's coming. But I basically I call you and I'm like, what's coming, Kenny? So I can talk about it on the internet. So we're going to talk predictions for this year and what's coming. And one of the things I've been grateful for, and you've been on the podcast recently where you talked about AI stuff, but you have stayed, and you dove in. I remember you and I having a conversation early on, and I guess in February you went to the Jasper AI conference.
Yes.
And then you and I were talking about it, and I was like, bro, you are teach me everything, and you have leaned in.
And that feels like an eon ago that we were
talking about. And that was in this year, 2023. So we're recording this in 2023. It's the time you're probably listening to it, it's 2024. But yeah, in the last year, a ton has changed that probably this time last year we could not have predicted. Yeah. All of the massive changes that would have come to church technology, social media, and at the bottom line, AI. It was kind of the year of AI this last year. So predictions. I mean, let's just go broad predictions to start, Kenny, for 2024. What are some just high level predictions that you have for church leaders and 2024?
Wow. So where do we start? I mean, I've got, do you want to start in alphabetical order, height order?
Just big picture. Like, what do you think is maybe the biggest prediction that you're going to say, like 2024 will be the year of blank?
Yeah. So I think this next year, it's going to be the year of niching down. I think people are going to find their voices, and we're finally at a place where I believe that leaders are going to be able to harness social for actual reach and engagement. I always say, so this is what I said to a group that I was speaking to recently, is that back in the day, when you and I first met, we were church online pastors. Like back in the day, there weren't that many forward-thinking ministries that actually had a paid staff member with that title, right?
Yeah.
I remember Tim Lucas at Liquid Church, visioneer in my mind of, he was preaching to the camera, and then he hired me as the media innovation pastor, and then later the church online pastor for the ministry. Yeah. And back in the day, you and I were friends out of necessity, because I say things didn't work. Like there was this promise of the internet and promise of digital ministry and promise of church online. And then we just get shamed in every week's staff meeting because everyone's like, "Hey, what happened, Kenny? Your platform didn't work, or you didn't." Right? Like our dreams outpaced what technology had to offer back then. Right? Yeah. Our dreams were bigger than what technology had. We were always waiting for technology to catch up with what you and I were scheming on the whiteboard for engagement and outreach on the digital front. And today, I think we're at the point where we're about to flip the script, where I think with AI particularly, we're not dreaming big enough. That God has larger dreams for you and me and ministries all over that are bigger than what we are actually dreaming. And so that's the challenge, I think, of this next year is like, what can we do with technology that we haven't even dreamt about yet? And I think there's so many things that is going to unfold, but the core baseline fundamental idea is I do think now you're going to be able to use social and all the networks and platforms and the algorithms to your advantage finally, where you're not on the defensive, but you're on the offense on how to actually become a digital herald for the gospel. And so
Mm.
that's my outlook for 24 in general.
Yeah, I love that. I love that prediction, and how that leans into the niches. And I so often want to get like platform specific or
Yeah.
medium specific, or and I think a lot of predictions I've had in the past are around VR. And I would say I'm at a place with VR, and so many churches I think overextended themselves in the metaverse,
Yeah.
path, and then kind of just had to say like there's not that many people here, so it's not worth us being here. And I don't think 2024 will even be a resurgent year for, I say resurgent, but even I think we'll just continue to see a trickle of VR engagement. I think you're right. AI technology is going to lead the way. Kenny, what I'm predicting for this next year is and I don't know even know how to verbalize this, but I would say it would be ministry leaders across the board leaning into personal platforms. What we have seen through the years, and I wouldn't say this is new, but there's a tension of, should I have a personal platform? Should we just focus on the church platform? I don't want to be, narcissistic and make this all about myself. But what we see in the world of social media is people connect to people better and they connect to organizations. I think the two reasons that pastors often haven't leaned into a personal presence on social media is, one, they don't want to be perceived or even be narcissistic in building their own personal platform.
Yeah.
And two, they don't have time, to do that. Well, now with AI tools, there's the ability to create more content and do more with the content you're creating, most specifically your sermon content, with AI tools. When you look at tools like Opus Pro or Sermon Shots or Pulpit AI, there's some incredible tools that are being made available that make content creation and distribution easier than ever. And so I think there's going to be, and I think pastors are seeing that their personal platforms get, exponential more reach and impact than their organizational platforms with their churches. Typically, there are some exceptions to that, and so I think this is going to be a year that maybe some pastors are like, okay, I just need to give in, and just lean into the personal platform that is not narcissistic in nature. It's how we approach it. I think that can lead to narcissism, that are going to extend reach beyond the other thing. I will say, from a platform standpoint though, I think and I would say it's maybe 20. I would say in 2023 I saw more embracing of TikTok. I would say in growth on TikTok as a platform. 2024, YouTube is not a new platform, but I think YouTube will be the platform that really extends, and I think especially as you see YouTube Shorts taking a bigger leap in priority within the YouTube platform, and so I just think YouTube is the platform that churches are going to prioritize and see the most fruits from in 2024. So those are my predictions. Let's get platform specific and maybe go down some of the different platforms. So Kenny, what would you say is what platform do you believe is going to have the biggest growth in 2024? And which platform do you see having the biggest decline in 2024?
Oh, that's so interesting. So I think this is going to be controversial right off the bat.
Yeah.
Niels, this is what we like wrestle and have these digital fights here.
Yeah.
I think that everyone believes that Facebook is dying or dead. But what I'm seeing from some of the major brands, and even Gary Vee, right,
Yes.
prophetically is saying
Yes.
Facebook is back. And I think it's just from a very basic math equation. All the creators and all the attention right now is on TikTok, it's on Instagram, it's all these other places. And it's a supply and demand issue that the publishers have basically forgotten about Facebook. Yet Facebook is the behemoth in everyone's on Facebook, right? Everyone is on Facebook. You have an account, whether it's obligatory or not. And I'm talking about across all generations. Facebook has aggregated basically everyone's contact point. And so I do think that, and this is the reason why, that and the general comfort of churches are with Facebook. I mean, again, we looked at that as they're being left behind, but they're already there. They already have some familiarity. They're not scared of it like they are TikTok. And so I think if people double down there, that they are going to see some growth, and that's going to fuel Facebook again. And again, for churches in particular, like I wish we had a whiteboard, because I would have all these Venn diagram circles to prove to you why this is a.
Yeah.
Why do we go to Facebook today, Nils? You and I, for the most part, it's not like just our feed. It is groups.
Yes.
Right? People are, you hear this all the time that says, the only reason I go to Facebook, the only reason why is because there's a group that I log in and check in. It's not like I'm posting my own life, etc., but it's groups. And I've never understood why Facebook doesn't double down on groups, because no other platform has done that well.
Yes.
WhatsApp kind of is happening now.
It's not the same though.
It's not the same. And they don't have the reach yet, right? And so
right.
I think Facebook is going to have some sort of comeback in terms of value for the average church.
Hey guys, it's Nils, and I'm interrupting this podcast episode to highlight one of our sponsors. This sponsor is actually one of my companies, Amplify Social Media, where I'm the founder and CEO. And for years, we've been helping ministries and churches grow their message and amplify their message through social media done for them. And so as a consultant, one of the things that I found is that a lot of times ministries that have a hard time with capacity to fully do everything that they want to do on social media. So we built a team to help. We can help put your sermons on YouTube and podcasts, and create social media clips and graphics and videos and all the things that you need to do with ads, and even responding, helping you manage your inbox and your comments and messages. Our team is here to help. So if you want help amplifying your social media presence, reach out to our team. Go to amplifysocial.media, and we would love to help. We will hopefully talk to you soon. Let's get back to the episode. Yes, I and I hate to agree with you, Kenny, but I do think that Facebook is, and I've thought this in the past, but I would say I was even looking at my own analytics last month. I had better engagement on Facebook than I did on any other platform. And honestly, I don't pay that much attention to it. And it's making me think, how can I create more Facebook specific content? I actually was talking with Jay Cranda last week, and he was saying we're seeing a resurgence on Facebook.
Yes.
And we're creating a unique live stream experience for Facebook, and what they're not, they're just seeing some interesting stats at Saddleback Church around Facebook that's causing them to reprioritize that platform and what they're doing. And so I think you're right. I do think it's interesting how Facebook, though, had prioritized groups, and it seems like they've in some ways deprioritized groups, and our page and personal profile content is being upticked. But I think the other reason that Facebook has such a great future is it's just great technology. It's been around so long. So a platform like TikTok is having to catch up with their ad platform. A platform like TikTok is having to catch up with their infrastructure and scale. Facebook has been built for scale for years, and so they can pivot and adjust their algorithms to user behavior and not have to build the technology infrastructure to handle 3 billion people on the platform. And so I'm in agreement, and I think time will tell. A lot can happen and change along the way, and so I think that's a good recommendation. What Kenny would you say is a platform that's going to decline in 2024?
Twitter. X. Now, look, whether you understand Elon's brain or not, it's just too much of a sandbox at this point.
Yeah.
And I think major brands and the general public just don't understand it. And it was confusing to churches to begin with. And for churches in particular, they're not getting the traction. So I think for 2024, I think X or Twitter has a chance to get back into the swing of things, but they need this year, they have to double down and sort things out. And for churches right now, I think that's an easy one to dismiss, because you are not getting significant traction on Twitter to begin with if you are a church leader, for the most part. And I think this next year, I am preaching, you need to go after the 464. That's my formula. So 4% of what you do drives 64% of your results. The way I got there, Nils, let's hear about this for a second.
You've got my attention.
We always say the 80-20 rule. 20% of what you do drives 80% of the
Yeah.
results. 20% of
Yeah.
what you do is actually what matters. Do you know what that 20% is on social? You need to look at your analytics. You need to actually figure out what's actually working and double down on that. And it gives you permission to get off the treadmill of death. The treadmill, right? That content treadmill of you just need to publish something every day, 24/7. You can get off that treadmill if you actually figure out what the 20% is that drives the 64. Now, I say you need to go one level deeper. Take 20% of 20%, and that's 4%. Take that in the 80%, that's 64. So what is the 4% of the tactics and the strategies that you are executing on that actually drives 64% of your results? That's your most efficient return on investment. That's what you need to double down on. No one has more time to add more things to their plate. You need to have a year of delete. And so what is the year of delete? You got to delete things that are non-strategic. And so first delete the 80% and then continue to delete and figure out what is your 4% of the work that you're doing that's driving 64% of the results on social media, and double down on that. That's what I'm saying.
Wow, there's the genius of Kenny Jahng right there in the math. I agree with you again, Kenny. I agree with you
and so
again.
We found out, this is just one example on one of our accounts for a ministry that we actually manage all their social. We actually found out that carousels don't do well on some specific platforms. Now, carousels in general work to build your authority, and there's specific reasons why you should be doing carousels in your mix. But we found for this one brand, this organization, ministry, it doesn't work. And so that's in the 80%, that's not actually moving the needle. So we tried to figure out what is in the 20% that's actually moving the needle, and it gave us permission to deprioritize carousel production for this next season. Because it just isn't getting the results relevant that's for their specific audience. So figure that out. I think you need to stop just chasing what everyone else is doing. Look at what's working, what's not working, do an audit, and then double down on what's working.
Yeah, that's so good.
Right, like you would argue that carousels is something that everyone should be exploring, right? They still are working. It's like webinars, right? Like, why are webinars around for eons? It's because they work. They still work. Carousels still work for the general. So you should, even though it's not like the latest, hottest thing that everyone's doing, you should look at carousels. But if it's actually not working for your specific audience, you have a permission to delete it. And so, anyway, that tension is there. The only way to learn is to actually figure out what you're actually doing on your side.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I think just to even go back to X, I like Elon. I like even the vision he casts for X. I like that he's prioritizing video. The problem that I'm finding is just it's buggy, more buggy from a technology perspective than I've ever. I can't even do X on my phone. I can't log into I can log into it on my computer, but on my phone with my primary account because the text authentication isn't working. And so there's just I feel like I'm just seeing these issues that are very concerning for the sustainability of the platform. And then all the issues with advertising and the revenue streams. I'm just very concerned with that platform. And I would say it wasn't even that effective prior to Elon. And it won't surprise me if it literally completely shuts down by the end of 2024. And so it would surprise me if it took off at this point. And so it just seems like if there's a platform to diminish the platform that I would say is that became like this massive surge and then crash is Threads in 2023. And it would not surprise me if Threads completely if Instagram is like, okay, we gave it a true shot and it just isn't worth it.
Oh, I will disagree with you there.
Different predictions. Okay, tell me.
Threads is broken. And there's just a larger leadership issue and again, I think it's related to Instagram. The head of Instagram is just desperate right now and just trying all these things, and no one likes what they're doing, right? And they're trying to be something that they're not. Threads was part of that strategy. It was a Me Too strategy. I think that they're lost right now. They're in the wilderness. The question is, will they ever come back? And again, it's kind of like how Facebook took a dive for younger audiences. I think Instagram is, my prediction is their influence in 2024 is just going to dwindle. TikTok's going to take over. However, Facebook is the owner.
Yes.
And Facebook has massive audiences, and they could actually change things on a dime more than any other platform. And they have the ability to have R&D, and they have margin, and they have this moat around them that no one can actually cross that moat in terms of trying to get up to speed and replace them. And so I think the question is, are they going to be focused? Are they going to be strategic? It's a total leadership issue. I think that if they got their ducks in a row, they could totally win the game. They could become the new Twitter X in an instant. But I think it's for Elon, it's for Instagram, it's for Mark and Facebook to a large degree. The thing that works in social is not what these leaders are practicing. Listen more than you speak. Right? You have to understand your audience. It's crucial in order to have the meaningful interaction and engagements. And they're not listening more than they speak on the leadership side. That's the core fundamental problem. And they need to adapt or fade away. And I think that right now, the only reason why you're still betting on these horses is because they're huge, right? They've got huge infrastructure. They've got huge reach. And the money is in the list, like we always say. And this is one of the things that I think on our platforms that you and I are trying to teach and inspire leaders is you need to invest in actual relationships, and you need to figure out how to get their contact information. You need to build your lists, whether it is right, their email, their phone for texting, their snail mail for sending them direct mail or letters and notes. You need to build a list. And so anyway, so it's ironic, right? It's ironic. What works on their platforms is actually not what they're doing with their companies. They're not listening more than they speak.
Yeah, that's good. Let's talk about even communication within the church. Of what do you maybe even predict around email, SMS, church database systems? Where do you see that going in 2024? Any predictions there?
I think you're going to see more people finally embrace texting, but still not quickly enough.
Yeah.
It is the preferred medium of communication of the person sitting in the pew or chair in your church, and yet you're ignoring that as a church leader.
Yeah.
Because it's confusing to you, right? Like, it's actually not that hard. It's just you just haven't opened the box and started to play with the thing.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think there are going to be platforms that win. It's not just mass texting. It's platforms like Text in Church, which actually I've told Tyler there. His company name is totally a red herring. Because did you know Text in Church, for example, integrates with email? Do you know Text in Church actually provides triggers for reminders for your staff to start workflows and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing that's going to happen with texting, is that you're going to have integration between email and texting is all going to be managed in one platform. I don't understand why MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, all these email platforms haven't double down and push that even further. But I think that the church has this opportunity to be able to, figure that out this year. I think more and more churches are going to do that. And there's going to be winners and losers per se, with the ones who understand and try to get up to speed in that. Our business in ministry is relationships.
Yes.
Our business is relationships. And the way you actually build and amass relationships is through communications. It's all through communications, and it's not one-sided. So anyway, I think email and texting is going to become closer and closer synonymous with each other.
Yep.
But my concern is that churches, kind of like with YouTube, Nils, are still blind to it. They've got right.
Yeah.
What do we do about that? How can we change that, Nils?
Well, I think it's one of those things of just like that's what we want to keep talking about over and over again, of like, if you're not texting, start texting. And if you are texting, how can you integrate that more with email and be more effective with it? Yeah. And if you're integrated, how do you still like just monitor the open rate? So, get more, it's a season to lean in. to especially these owned communication channels, and make sure you're cleaning your email list. Make sure you're following some of these best practices, but don't wait until you have a whole comprehensive text strategy to start texting. Just start. And this is where we love, Text in Church of, they just provide a very simple solution and affordable solution for churches to get started. And then as you're integrated into their platform, they have the ability to become more comprehensive in how you're doing all those things. So
I mean, there are plenty of texting platforms out there. You should start with one. I was just talking with one where they're doing devotionals. So you can take your sermon, create mini devotionals, and just start that process. And they have a technology where if you don't open up and read the first one, they won't send you the second one. They'll send you reminders, and it's about compliance and how to get you to actually activate. So you're going to see tons of activity in that.
I know Glue is offering free texting as a service as well. I mean, there's lots of opportunities out there. That the barriers into this of like some people say it's too expensive. Well, it's free now. There are free solutions, and I haven't used that solution, so I can't suggest it. But
even Google Voice, right? Google Voice gives you free texting. I mean, there's so many. There's price is not the barrier.
Yes.
The prioritization and valuing it is the barrier.
Yeah.
And then once you actually, you get what you pay for. And I think once you start to value that in terms of what it can strategically do for your ministry and help your ministry flourish in your relationships, then I think you open your eyes, right? Like, actually, here's a shout out on churchtechtoday.com. We've indexed a whole report of, I think it's over 30 different texting platforms, or 20 something different texting platforms with all these different there's a wide variety of opportunities out there to engage. So there's no excuse. That's my point, is like, you can't just say we don't fit that model. Like, there's tons of opportunities out there.
Yep. So the other prediction I'm going to make, that's maybe a negative prediction related to this, is I believe, and I hope this isn't true, but I believe a prominent church is going to get hacked in 2024 because of not using good cybersecurity, policies and systems, and that is going to alert of like, well, what are we doing? Because this is what often happens is you see something happen, you're like, okay, we need to figure out a system and policy around this. And so I continue to see such poor cybersecurity, so even just password sharing within churches, and we just text the volunteer the access to the whole database. And I think we've got to get smarter around our cybersecurity systems with our database systems and email systems. Or an employee that's disgruntled leaves and they still have access, things like that I think we've got to get smarter around. And these are one of those things that isn't cool, like texting. That's going to help you engage more people. It's more of a defensive, like getting insurance.
Absolutely.
That you need to do. And I think there's going to be a priority created there, but it's going to come from a pain that someone, or something's going to happen that is going to cause people to kind of react and take the steps needed, and so something's got to cause people to get that attention needed there.
Yeah, Kenny, I totally agree. Like, you need to lock your data like your front door, and that's not happening right now, right? You have to protect your assets. And right now, we know social media and Facebook and all these platforms where you are the product. We understand that we live in an economy of data, and privacy is your currency, right? And privacy right now is something that if you don't protect, you're in trouble.
Yep. So big deal there. Any other predictions, Kenny, as you just look out on the horizon of the coming year, that you just think church leaders need to be paying attention to or thinking about, or you think might develop over the next year that church leaders should be aware of?
Oh, there's so many. I think, first of all, like, the AI is going to completely change how people produce content. I think it is still a slow burn in terms of adoption and understanding what it's good for. Now, with that, I think there's this tension. I'm a proponent of figuring out how to have responsible use of AI for ministry, but at the same time, I do think authenticity wins audiences. Right? I
Yes.
totally believe that authenticity wins audiences, and so if you are able to have a genuine voice that's published in a consistent way, that's going to resonate more than these facades that AI brings you when you're
Yep.
lazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that with respect to AI, what you're also going to see is things are going to go multimodal. And that's just a nerdy way of saying, hey, it's not just about text anymore. It's about
Yes.
images, it's about audio, it's about video. And we all know that visuals speak louder than words,
Yep.
right? Images and videos, they have a greater impact than text alone. And
Yep.
so video is still going to be the number one way that you're going to get the most efficient traction out there. And this
Yeah.
is why you're a proponent of let's really invest in your YouTube channel.
100%. Yes.
YouTube is the only platform, the only major platform today where it is not affected by the time decay of content.
Yep.
YouTube is not affected by the time decay of content. And by that
Yes.
I mean in every other platform, once you post it, as time goes on, the value of that content disappears. Like it just disappears. It's not worth it anymore to look at it if it's 3 weeks old, a year old, etc. YouTube
Yes.
is the only one that's in reverse. That once you
Yes.
publish something, that it continues to increase in value for you and for your audiences. And
Yes.
so um, visual speaks louder than words.
Yep.
Video is the new black. I've been saying that for years, over and over again.
Yes. Yes.
Content is king,
Yes.
and video is different than text. Video allows you to efficiently show that authenticity, and
Yes.
we all know that authenticity wins audiences. How do you do that
Mm.
quickly? You can do it with video, and so pastors need to wake up and really figure out how
Yes.
to do this.
Yes. So I've got a platform specific question as we wrap up this podcast. Is what and so even as we look at Instagram Threads or whatever happens there with the Threads platform, you can look at Instagram has killed IGTV, and they haven't gone, they're willing to say this isn't working. We're going to move in a different direction. I have always been. It was interesting that basically they created kind of a Twitter copycat with Threads,
Yeah.
and they've done a great job, I think, of the copycat system of basically using Snapchat stories, integrating stories into Facebook and Instagram, and then basically TikTok with Reels. And so one of the things that's always confused me, even about that long-term algorithm that YouTube has, and they're using essentially a short-term algorithm with Shorts. And so they're it's so interesting that YouTube is basically kind of has two very different algorithms built into their platform with YouTube videos versus YouTube Shorts. It has confused me with Facebook Watch, and I don't even know if Facebook Watch is still a thing. I've never really watched long form video on Facebook, but it does seem that Facebook could be there's no legitimate competitor to YouTube when it comes to long form video. Do you see Facebook prioritizing that, or just continuing to let Facebook Watch be a passive absence on their platform?
Ooh, that's a great question. I do agree with you that IGTV lost because they were trying to go after long form video when
Yep.
everyone's going short form video, right? Like
Yep. Yeah.
that was a huge misstep. I feel like what
Yes.
if we were just in that conference room when they were making those decisions, we would
Yeah.
have said you need to expand short form video, and because that's going to that's the direction that everyone has adopted and the internet has raised their hand to vote for.
Yep.
So let's see. Facebook Watch is interesting to me. I don't know how they're going to convince creators to do that, though, because
Yeah.
they need to figure out how to have increased monetization on that
Yeah.
platform. That's what
Yep.
drives it at the end of the day.
Yep.
And so to me, that is a conundrum that Facebook has to figure out. I don't know how you do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Facebook Watch initially was courting the large Fortune 1000 brands, right?
Right.
And today, I think here's the trend is that you're going to see even further rise of the micro influencers. And
Hmm.
short-term videos
Yes.
are going to continue to empower micro influencers
Yes.
to do that. And so, um, yeah, I don't know if Facebook
Yeah.
Watch actually has a chance of.
Yeah.
Uh,
But the thing that Facebook, where I've always just been confused by Facebook not prioritizing that, what they have is a great advertising platform.
yeah,
And so one of the biggest challenges for any competitor coming in is essentially building the monetization system tied to it. But long form video, I think it's one of the things that YouTube has done so well is they get people's attention. The average American is spending over an hour a day on YouTube
yeah,
now, and they're only spending about 23 minutes a day on Facebook. And so I think if they're wanting more attention to serve more ads, you would think Facebook Watch would become a priority to them. But I would say from a prediction standpoint, I don't see them prioritizing it. If I were them, that's what I would prioritize. But I don't see that being a priority. That's where I think YouTube is a better priority than Facebook this next year. Even though I do think Facebook micro content with reels, with carousels, things like that, will be a good investment this next year. I don't see long form video on Facebook or even Facebook Live being a high priority this next year. But you know what? I'm also glad to be very wrong. As we look back on 2023, we would not have predicted all that happened in 2020. I would not have predicted threads, being a thing, and being this development. And so who knows what
well,
2024 holds, but yeah.
the way that Facebook might win though is you got to look what Amazon is doing with their live stream. Did you know that Amazon has live streamers 24/7 right now? This is a
Yeah.
huge category.
Yeah.
And they bought Twitch, I think, back in 2014, 15 or something
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
And I do think one of the key reasons people go to Facebook is groups. But what's the other big thing? Marketplace. Marketplace
Yes.
has
Yes.
replaced Craigslist and the creepiness of all that kind of stuff,
Hey,
right?
100%. 100%.
And so I do think there is an opportunity where the
Yeah.
monetization thing can happen in that
Yes.
marketplace. I mean, you got to start somewhere where there's
Oh
commerce
man,
and
that's good.
revenue attached to
Yes.
it. And
Yes.
so now that Amazon stuff is blowing up, but it's not
Yes.
associated with major platforms, and it's too niche. It's like going to just QVC. I think the
Yes.
integration model of having that on Facebook is a huge
Yep.
opportunity. Whether or not anyone at Facebook's listening, hello, Facebook, anyone listening to this thing? That's the question. But there's a
Yeah.
huge opportunity there to empower people because we all know Facebook Live. They have
Yeah.
the watch engine, and they have marketplace. They've got commerce. They've got the advertisers. You have this potential marketplace of connecting brands with micro influencers to do live streaming and actually figure out how to attack that market. Anyway, so that's my last thing
Yeah.
in terms of commerce and growth, et cetera.
That's so good. That's so good. Kenny, this was such a good conversation. Appreciate you sharing your genius here on the podcast, and I can't wait to revisit this next year as we look back at predictions and look forward into 2025. I want to. Well, first of all, how can people that want to connect with you? How can they connect with you online? What's the best places?
Yeah, I'm searchable online, hang out with most of the platforms. Right now, I think the two places that might be of interest to this audience is churchtechtoday.com. You can find me there and the social there, as well as aiforchurchleaders.com and the Facebook group, AI for Church Leaders. We've got several thousand. I think we're over
Yeah.
5,000. As of
Yeah.
today, over 5,000 people just trading notes, learning
Yeah.
about AI together for ministry in the AI for Church Leaders Facebook group. So hit me up in one of those places. And as you know, Nils, I love to engage with church leaders, sharing
Yes.
what we've learned, but also learning from everybody out there
Yes.
because
Yes.
innovation is done better together.
100%. 100%. Kenny, I want to highlight an initiative you did as you're a better together kind of leader in 2023. You did the church bundle, which you allowed me to be a part of. And you, for like a crazy low price, basically threw in for like $100, like $10,000 in value to church leaders in basically integrating your friends, and some of the services and products that they provide. Can you share a little bit about even how people can make sure they don't miss the next church bundle
Sure.
opportunity?
Yeah. So, it was just, so churchbundle.com. It started out with a couple of us just talking about And you and I are blessed. We have opportunities to work with larger ministries and churches that typically have teams and budgets, et cetera. But our heart just continues to resonate with the normal sized church, where we see all these world class resources being made, and how do we make them accessible to all church leaders? And so that's how churchbundle.com started. So every month we curate free resources, and you can actually download them. No credit card required, et cetera. You can go there right now. And then twice a year, we have these paid bundles for paid resources. And for Black Friday, we had a crazy deal. It was under $100, and we put in a couple $1,000s worth of resources for people. It was literally a gift. Anyway, churchbundle.com, and we're looking for suggestions. We want to know what's working. And so I'd love to, if you want to reach out to me, let me know, hey, here's a resource that we actually used in our ministry. And then we'll figure out, how do we make that accessible to everybody else? So anyway, that's a way of giving back and a way of connecting the dots. And honestly, I think it's, how do you resource everybody together?
Yeah. I was thrilled to be a part of it, and I the addition I made to it was a course I created called "Growing Your Church with Social Media," and I've gotten so much great feedback from those people that signed up for that the bundle, and got to take go through that course and that content.
Yeah, that's a great example. Like if you go through your course, right, which I signed up for. Like it's professionally done, and it actually is a curriculum. And from my understanding, from what I could tell when going through the course, it's actually the same type of strategic advice and execution that you do for larger clients and larger ministries. And so you're teaching it in a course format so that anyone could apply it to their own ministry. That's a great example of it. It's like you're working with large accounts, and you're seeing what happens because you have so much data in terms of seeing things that what's working, what's not. And then being able to translate that in a way that's accessible to the average church, I think is just amazing. So how do we do more of that? That's how it started. So love what you're doing there. Give to the kingdom.
I love it. It's such a thrill. Kenny, I'm so grateful for your partnership, your friendship, and thanks for being such a significant voice on this podcast through the years. Kenny, for those that don't know, I should have highlighted this beginning. Kenny was the first official guest on this podcast. I was number 2. And years and years later, this podcast has been going for like 10 years now. Thanks to our mutual friend, DJ
do one of those replays, like Mystery Theater. Like we should watch that first episode again and just laugh. It must be so funny, hilarious, how embarrassing that was. That first conversation.
You know what? That's a prediction for 2024 is we will do I should know what this is called because my kids watch a lot of them, where you literally watch an old episode and then talk about it and critique yourself from 10 years ago. So Kenny, you and I will critique each other, the first and second episode together.
Just roast me during the whole episode. That's all it is.
So we'll do a react podcast to those first episodes. I love that idea, Kenny. So that's a prediction that I can actually make happen in 2024. If I can lock down Kenny, he's a busy man. Kenny, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for listening. Go to socialmedia.church or show notes. The links to everything Kenny talked about, they'll be right there in the show notes. And if you would leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you're listening, that would mean the world to us. Thanks so much for listening. We will talk to you again on the next episode.